Today is November 8th, it is 9 p.m. Eastern, and just so you know, for the duration of the PvE cycle, I will be telling you the date and time every single time I start filming one of these videos. And the reasoning why is because for those of you who don't know, the TFT PvE cycle, at least, it's patching every single fucking day. There are new changes, new buffs, new nerfs, or whatever, and if you want to stay up to date on every single one of these changes, there are a lot. Feel free to go over to Mortdog's Twitter and you can read into all of them if that's something that, you really care about. I will say this though real quick. A lot of people, I know especially even in high elo, this is too much to read, like obviously. So like if you want to wait a week, because the first week is when a lot of things change, and then after the first week, it's a lot more minor buffs and nerfs. Feel free to just wait a week, and that's fine. Totally acceptable, I understand. Real quick, one last thing before we start the video. Kano posted this terrific resource, by the way. This is metatft.com/pve-comps. If you don't want to watch like an entire fucking video dissecting the KDA vertical, you can just go over to this website. I will link it below in the description, and you can just like browse through and just look for boards that look intriguing to you. I will say this though about this website in particular, I would take it with a bit of a grain of salt. They do tier the comps and they do rank the popularity, but I will say that because there's so little data and such a wide range of skill, I don't really know how many of these boards are actually good or even real. Like for example, this 2 EDM board sticks out like a sore thumb to me, because this looks like somebody played built different and they just high rolled out of their mind and they just won, but they just had 2 EDM on their board. So take it with a grain of salt. There are some other ones as well with medium popularity. You could maybe consider these a bit more, especially like things like 4 rapid fire, 4 punk. This is definitely a real board, does some real shit. But again, go through it. Critical thinking skills, okay? Put your thinking caps on. But again, if you want to just like kind of like no brain it though at the same time, just feel free to look over here. But if you don't like this for whatever reason, because it doesn't let you build the boards, you can also go over here, lolchess.gg, and this I'll link this in the description below. But you can just like look at a comp that looks interesting to you, just press open in builder, and you'll just open a new tab, and it will just give you whatever build. But again, I would take these with a bit of a grain of salt. There are a lot of things in here I just don't agree with, specifically the itemization, and sometimes the unit quality isn't the best. But the reasoning is because obviously it's supposed to be like a realistic board you can hit at level 8, right? For example, like this Caitlyn, I don't think Ginsu's Caitlyn is good at all. I think this is actually trash. I think this should be like a Last Whisper. But that's just like one example, right? Just take this with a grain of salt, okay? But do your own critical thinking skills. But if you want to, like, again, like kind of no-brain it and not watch this whole fucking video, yeah. I mean, we're gonna cover shit that's not in there, but you know how it be. Anyways, let's move on and get into the fucking meat and potatoes. That is such a white boy phrase. But let's get into the video. So this is the vertical KDA tree. We got Neeko, Akali, Lilia, Echo, Evelynn, Ahri, Kai'Sa, and Seraphine. These are all the KDA units that exist within the current set. I will say this though real quick. We can't really talk about compositions without acknowledging the fact that headliners exist. Headliners, the chosen mechanic that people try to paraphrase it as, this mechanic, it's integral to the way that you approach your compositions and your boards. You can't build specific boards without having the specific chosen that you're looking for, right? So for example, if you're like going into a game and at 2-1 you're like, oh, I'm playing Ahri, that is not the right approach. In set 9, that was the right approach. Fuck that set. But in this current set, you have to play pretty flexibly with what you're given. So these are all boards based off if you hit this specific chosen. So this is like, hey, I happen to find Ahri KDA chosen, sorry, KDA headliner. I'm gonna get that interchangeably mixed up a lot. But they're like, oh, I'm playing the game level 8 roll down, I hit KDA Ahri headliner, and I'm like, oh shit, now I know exactly what I want to be trying to build this board around. Cool stuff. You should always be building your boards around the chosens that you're given and then flex around that. Obviously, that is another thing to note. You gotta flex around the units that you find, flex around the units that you hit, and then work around that. This set really rewards flexible play, so it's going to be a very skill expressive set. So yes, even though we are talking about boards, again, one, make sure that it's a board that you're playing around the chosen that you were given, plus, you're not going to play the exact same board, most likely. You're probably playing around different units, different stuff that you find, higher unit quality, lower unit quality. This is sort of on average what you might find, right? So anyways, glad that we got that out of the way. So let's talk about it. So first off, the vertical KDA board. Dick. This is like not that great in my opinion. The reason why is because sure, you can play vertically and it's fine, but actually, insider scoop, this set, I know specifically they were really trying to make sure that verticals don't feel as rewarding as horizontal play. So even though last set, yes, 9 Demacia, 9 Shurima, 9 Ionia or whatever, right? Like whatever the traits were. Those were the traits that you would play if you were like, hey, I want to win the game. Now it's like, hey, if I want to win the game, I gotta play like maybe 2 of this, 3 of that, 2 of this, 4 of this, right? You want to play a bit more flexibly around the unit quality that you play, and unit quality will probably be more prevalent than the trait itself, right? Just stuffing a bunch of the same type of units. So, and that's what's good. As a TFT player, I like that a lot. So, anyways, as you can see here, because we talked about, you know, the emphasis on unit quality, clearly Lilia should not probably stay on our board. This is a 1 cost, like, the bullshit, right? Kaisa probably doesn't stay on our board as well. It's a 2-star KDA big shot. We could definitely like start dropping these units as well, right? And start playing around things like, I don't know, Lilia was for Sentinel, so maybe we hit a Blitzcrank, right? And God, I hate this planner so much. Blitzcrank here, and then we drop the Kaisa as well. It drops putting something else, maybe Executioner for our Akali, right? You want to keep building into different traits, teching out of large verticals if you find the need to, you know, improve the unit quality, stuff like that. So again, the 7 vertical line is fine, but you should be playing around what you find. So moving on, KDA Ahri. Again, this is the KDA chosen Ahri. So KDA chosen Ahri, the build that I like to default the most whenever I find KDA Ahri, it's 4 Guardian for the front line, and then you play it around 3 Spellweaver for the back line and Dazzler as well. There is some things to take note. For example, for hyper pop units in particular, Lulu and Ziggs in this case, the only 2 in the set, you want them really, really close to your carry, aka Ahri. The reason being is that because the way that the ability works is that when Hyperpop champions use an ability, they grant mana and 4 seconds of attack speed to their 2 closest allies after casting. So clearly, you want these closest to Ahri because you want her to be casting and autoing to, you know, proc her mana and get more mana and more casting, right? You get the idea. So there are some people, by the way, who like will also put their Sona next to the Ahri. The idea being is that because of the way that her shit works, the idea is that like, oh, like she buffs her allies, so you want her closer to her allies. But from what I've seen, at least, her targeting is completely random. So you don't actually have to put her right next to your allies or right next to your carry. You can put her in fucking La La Land and she's just gonna buff whoever she sees fit. It seems to be completely RNG based off what I've seen. I will say this though real quick. If you do have training dummies on your board, she can also buff training dummies. So be careful of that interaction. But anyways, this is definitely the ideal board here. You want Thresh, Neeko to be your main carries, or sorry, your main tanks. Thresh is one of the premier 4-cost tanks. Whenever you're thinking about I need a front line, you should be thinking about Thresh and you should be thinking about Blitzcrank. These are the 2 premier tank lines. So Thresh is incredibly strong tank here. You could also drop the 2 here and just play 2 Sentinel instead. Like for example, you could drop Uno Dos and then you could just do, like I said before, the Blitzcrank plus like a strong Sentinel, something like maybe the Mordekaiser, something like this, right? And again, this is really fine as well. Flex around what you find. As for Ahri itemization, you might have noticed, if you were prudent, that Ahri here has a blue buff Nashor's JG. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how good that is. Clearly, the most intuitive approach is blue buff JG Guardbreaker. To some degree, right? Blue buff JG Guardbreaker, blue buff JG Archangels, blue buff Rabadon's Giant Slayer, right? These item combinations exist. These are sort of the defaults that are intuitive, right? But I will say this though, the way that Ahri's ability works, she blows a kiss at the current target, and if it deals magic damage and briefly stuns them. But if they've been kissed before, then you send out an orb and you deal bonus magic damage instead, right? So the idea is that, it seems to me at least, you want this Ahri casting infinite. And if you don't remember, back in set 9, one of the variations of Silco's builds was, I believe it was Adapticone, Nashor's +1. So you could also technically, and because her mana pool is so low, by the way, it might be blue buff instead of Adapticone, which is why I still think it's blue buff. But it could be like blue buff Nashor's Archangels, and this is potentially an option. It's good, I don't know, but try it out. I haven't had much of a chance to try this version of the build just yet. I've been testing a different KDA unit for the past 10 hours. You'll know why when we go over it. But anyways, definitely try it out. Let me know what you think. If it's bad, I'm sorry. Hey, at least you did it on the PB and not on a ranked game, right? So good stuff. This is the time to be testing shit out. So good shit. Anyways, moving on. Ahri, we've gone over the KDA version of the headliner. Now, I keep wanting to say chosen. It's so bad. I didn't even fucking place that for. But anyways, now let's move on to the spellweaver version. Now, let me say this real quick. From my understanding, it seems like one trait of a headliner will always be better than the other. So for example, if I'm playing Ahri, I'm pretty sure 9 times out of 10, I'd prefer Spellweaver over KDA. Obviously, it depends on the numbers and whatever, and what is meta, what is not. But it seems to be that there is always a preference for what that chosen trait is. So, I said chosen again, I'm sorry. Mort dog, sorry. Anyways, but I would say this, that if you, for example, on your roll down, I think especially this pertains more to higher elo, but I would say obviously you can't be too picky with what you find, but maybe like let's say you are doing a roll down on 8 and you're like 60 gold, 50 gold or whatever, and you start rolling down and you immediately see KDA Ahri with the chosen. If you got like 50 gold left over and you don't have a chosen on your board, like maybe consider greeting it a little bit, but that is just like a small thing to note. At the end of the day, I think ideally you want to be able to just play whatever you find, but there might be a bit of a bias that you might want to create for yourself if something seems to be particularly stronger than the other, and right now Spellweaver Ahri seems to be a bit better than KDA Ahri. That's just my opinion. But anyways, going into here, Spellweaver Ahri. So this is the vertical Spellweaver board. This is a very, very obvious board. This is just, again, you're just stacking vertically up, but as you can tell, there are things in here that you would ideally rather tech out. Things like a Seraphine on your board, things like Gragas on your board. I'm starting to lose my voice, even though I've barely talked today. I didn't even stream. Hello? Jesus. That was pretty funny. Let me take a sip of water. But you get the idea. Again, this is sort of the generic idea, play around vertical Spellweaver, but we do want to eventually tech out a Spellweaver and start playing into other things. So for example, this is again Spellweaver Ahri, and again, the reason why I like the Spellweaver version better for the headliner is because you can just tech in any other one extra Spellweaver, aka Sona, and then you can just play around very high unit quality. So in this example, we have 2 Jazz with the Bard and the Lucian. We have Ziggs as well here with the Dazzler. He should or Hyperpop rather, he should actually be closer to the Ahri here. Something like this, I would say. 80 items go on Lucian here, tank items go on Thresh, on Blitzcrank on Yorick. Probably on Blitzcrank over Thresh. I think Blitzcrank is a better tank than Thresh. That's just my opinion. But then again, you do have Guardian from Yorick, so yada yada, whatever the fuck you find, right? But you get the idea. You want to keep trying to play upwards, increasing the cap of your board. I will probably make a guide on how to play your strongest board every single round, sometime near the end of the PvE cycle, just so that the numbers aren't so crazy and things don't seem out of whack. Like, let's say for example, like I made that video, like, I don't know, like at the beginning of the PvE cycle, and then I made it at the end, and then suddenly, like, someone's watching it 2 weeks later, and they're like, hey, what the fuck? Like, this unit's dog shit. Like, that's not capping out your board, right? It becomes annoying. So, anyways, you get the idea, though. You want to try to, you know, keep increasing unit quality as you go. This is going to be a common theme throughout the video, in case you're unaware. But anyways, moving on. Not much else to talk about. Same itemization, you get the idea. Next, Kai'Sa Chosen. Headliner. Fuck. Sorry. Kai'Sa here. I played a lot of Kai'Sa reroll actually on the playtest, and admittedly, I can't lie, it actually felt kind of good. I will say this though, a lot of the 1 cost and the 2 cost rerolls are designed this set to fall off a fucking cliff. So, I mean, obviously, if you played day 1 Yasuo, you would know that that wasn't true. But the hope is that a lot of these 1 cost rerolls, they can top 4 you a game, but they're not supposed to win you out. It's supposed to be very, very rare for you to win out with 1 cost, 2 cost rerolls. So Kai'Sa follows under that same vein. It's very hard to win out, but she snowballs like crazy throughout the mid game. BIS Kai'Sa, blue buff, IE, and guard breaker. I think this is inarguable. Inarguable. Like, this is, it's just so good. Basically, the ability works. She just dashes, fires a missile, and then deals physical damage. Very fucking straightforward. I will say this though, Kai'Sa position kind of matters. During the playtest, what I've noticed is that what you can do with Kai'Sa is that you can actually place her here in D4, and what she can do is that once she's ready to cast her ability, she will dash this way, shoot her missile, and actually snipe the opponent's carry sitting in the corner. I will also say this though, that even though it was working like a charm during the playtest, I don't know if they changed her AI or whatever, but it doesn't seem to be as much of a case anymore. Let me know if you find some better Kai'Sa positioning, but tech used to be D4. I tried it recently. It didn't seem to be doing her job like before. But yeah, test it out. Let me know what you think. But let me know if you find a better way to position Kai'Sa. But for now, you can probably just leave her in the corner, but you can maybe try D4. But I would say just keep this hex open here on the far right side, because in case the tech still works, she's going to dash here and then snipe the carry on the other side of the board. So just keep that in mind. You do want to eventually cap out here, obviously, because Ezreal is sort of going to be your item holder for your Jhin. The idea is that basically anything that Jin wants, Ezreal can just hold for now. Ezreal does like blue buff as well, surprisingly. So this is actually really, really prudent of the design team, where Ezreal can just hold blue buff, and then once you hit that fucking Jin, you just smack the blue buff and items onto Jin, and suddenly he is gonna have a really, really good time. Bigshot, they do get a lot of AD, by the way, inherently, so Deathblade probably isn't that great. I don't know what BIS Jin is, to be completely honest with you. Don't ask me, so ask somebody else. I have played very little Jin this entire set because I know he's strong, and I want to be testing other lines. But Guard Breaker, GS, these are probably fine. Any AD items in general, maybe IE is good as well. Definitely things to consider. I just realized these are the exact same things. Kind of interesting how all the big shots like just love all the same items. I don't know if that's on purpose, but yeah, cool thing to note. But anyways, that's it about for Kai'Sa reroll. Oh, and again, just to note real quick, we are playing for Kai'Sa and Pantheon here for the front line. This is, again, just what is probably going to happen the most often. But let's say, for example, you hit that Kai'Sa 3 super early and you only have like 3 Pantheons. Just ditch the fucking Pantheon and just keep pecking on strong unit quality for your front line. Play the Blitzcrank, play the Thresh, play your Sentinel front line, play your fucking Guardians, whatever, right? Whatever you see fit. Bruisers, allow it, you get the idea. Whatever you find, just, you know, be prudent, be critical. Moving on, Akali, KDA. Fuck this unit. Holy shit, fuck this unit. This unit, by the way, this is the unit that took me, like, the whole day to create this video because I was struggling to get this unit online. And I'm going to be honest, it has been like a whole day. I cannot get this unit online. I actually think right now her numbers are just shit, but I see the vision. All right, we see where they're trying to go with this. So let's talk about the vision, because once this unit gets buffed, and it inevitably will be, because there's no fucking way this is getting shipped onto live, it will feel very good. So let's talk about it. So first off, this is sort of the best version of Akali that I could think of. This is the KDA Akali variation. This is with the Akali, sorry, the KDA headliner trait, right? And the idea is that like you don't actually really need the KDA buff at all. It's actually not that substantial. But I mean, if you're gonna have +2 anyways, and you're kind of like low on econ, and you find that Akali, send it, you'll know what to do. The idea is really simple here. You do need a Kennen though, which is kind of rough. This is the only thing that's a little difficult to find. But once you get the Kennen here, I unfortunately do not know what the super fan item is for Akali is. I'm going to hope it is a damage item, but it doesn't matter because Akali BIS, at least from what I could tell, was Hodge QSS +1. Don't do the beginner mistake of building an IE on Akali. Akali has crit. Her abilities can crit. She's an executioner, and that is what the trait does. And you can maybe make the argument that, yeah, you can have a little more bonus crit chance, but there are better ways to incorporate crit that isn't redundant, and redundancy is inefficiency. So Hodge QSS is best, at least from what I can tell. I think Last Whisper is fine. I think Guard Breaker is fine, but I think the biggest problem Akali fights, or at least finds herself in, is one, her complete fucking lack of damage. Hello at Mortdog, but also her fucking she gets CC'd like really badly, and it fucks her up real hard. So I actually think the QSS is nice because one, it gives her a little bit of that extra crit chance that she's looking for. Two, she can utilize the new way that Quicksilver gives you attack speed. She actually doesn't mind attack speed too badly. I wouldn't build a Ginsu on her, but like I think she utilizes it just fine. She is an AD champion. And yeah, it seems to be totally fine here. We'll talk about the itemization without the super fan item. But anyways, this is a variation that I think is really, really good. Obviously, you do need a secondary carry and a primary tank. The primary tank here being the Thresh here as well. Any tank item suits him. Nothing is like that much better than the other. I will say this though, it does seem to be a bit more of a AD leaning meta, at least from what I can derive from my own experience. So I do think Bramble is a bit better than Declaw, but that is sure to change based off the meta as the days progress, so take that with a grain of salt. But as usual, the tankiest of items, Gargoyles, Redemption +1, always really great. Karthus, by the way, he does have the KDA emblem here. You might have noticed some units have the KDA or whatever emblem. Reason is just because this team builder doesn't actually have the built-in like chosen mechanic function in yet. I mean, it's only like 2 days of the PBE, like cut him some slack. But yeah, so that's why you might see some traits. Anyways, Karthus BIS, it is undeniably Archangel Shojin +1, usually Guardbreaker. This is like I don't think anybody would argue this is BIS. The reasoning is because again, you get the crit chance from your ability, from not your abilities, your trait for being an executioner, and he just rains down. He takes a while to cast. He has like 140 mana, I believe, at the current, no, sorry, 130 currently, but a lot of fucking mana, and then just fucking and the end game just executes all the lowest health units. Really, really sick shit. Lulu here, by the way, you might have noticed as well, this is just a splash in. So even though this is a board you roll for at level 8, this can be whatever. In a perfect world, it's gonna be Ziggs. it is going to be Ziggs no matter what. The idea is that I think Ziggs is going to be like the splashing unit, Ziggs or Alawi or Sona. I think these are the big ones. But the thing is that Ziggs is just really great because it can get, again, Dazzler for Karthus, plus it does AoE MR Shred, which is great for Karthus. So Karthus loves Ziggs. Like, they're like a happy couple together. It's terrific. It's fantastic. So yeah, good shit. Moving on, let's talk about Executioner Akali. Akali, very annoyingly enough, actually has 3 different variations of a headliner trait, so that is fun. Here we have the Akali here. Again, this is the vertical Executioner board. Again, just like with the vertical spell weavers and whatever, you can definitely tech down out of executioners to try to get some better unit quality in there. The most obvious example is that you can switch to Snar for Poppy to get you the moshers as well, but also gives you emo instead, which is really, really nice. Hello, there we go. The emo instead, and then the Twitch, this can be whatever splash. Again, Ziggs is probably the best in my opinion, but there are plenty of other really good stuff that you could be utilizing. You could probably, in this composition in particular though, Executioners doesn't have a lot of frontline, so actually Alawi might be really great as well. Just splash in just an Alawi as is, totally fine, seems good to me. But yeah, again, very strong board. I think out of all of the Akali chosens, or sorry, headliners, Jesus Christ, different types of, you know, plus 2s that you can get, I do think Akali with the Executioner was the best out of all of them. At least it felt the most consistent. I did go 5th with it, but I wasn't going 7th, so that was good. And by the way, I was going 7th and like fucking like with playing against a lot of players who were like GM challenger, etc. So I feel like in that situation, I think it's fine. I mean, maybe it's a player diff, but I mean, I was hard forcing this shit and going 5th. I mean, that can't be that bad. But anyways, really, really great stuff here. You can also, by the way, if you don't hit the Akali with the Executioner headliner, you can also look for the Karthus with headliner, or even the Vex with the chosen headliner if you need to do it throughout stage 4, stage 5. That's just to, you know, make sure that if you're gonna roll for that headliner again, you have some way of still staying 4 execution or even 5 or 6 depending on the way that you want to play this. But regardless, still really, really great board. Again, if you're gonna play the Akali line, I highly recommend this. Again, items are exactly the same. You could probably make an argument about Deathblade. I don't know if this is actually that good. Maybe it's Titans, maybe it is GS, maybe it's Last Whisper. I don't really fucking know. I highly doubt it's GS. I think she wants to ideally blow up the backline, but I can see why they kept Akali's numbers low though, because Akali, when she's strong, can feel very frustrating. I know during the playtest she was overtuned, so they've toned her down since then, and now she feels like a fucking piece of shit. So, but I mean, it's for good reason. Like, who the fuck likes Assassin, right? But I mean, you get the idea. But anyways, Akali, really, really strong inside the vertical executioner line. Finally, Akali, when you hit her as a headliner for true damage. Again, this is just vertical true damage. Feel free to start teching down if you need to. But I will say this though, this does require fighting the Qiyana, which is really annoying. Because Qiyana, I don't think enough people realize how strong Qiyana is. First off, her ability is kind of nutty. It's just a bunch of CC that does damage. But then on top of that, her ability, and this is the bling bonus, by the way. The bling bonus, by the way, is when you put items onto them and they are able to get their bling bonus, the true damage effect. But after she casts her ability and it kills a champion with a copyable item, then she creates a permanent component based on the copied item. So if you itemize your Qiyana and then she starts killing shit, you start farming components. So she's very, very good in the end game. A very, really interesting way to cap out your board. So definitely something to consider, because I think if you're able to find that Qiyana, or maybe you find a very lucky Qiyana too, this unit is kind of a fucking beast. I don't think people have realized just how strong this is. Right now, as you can tell though, she is a crowd diver. We don't have any crowd diver enabled at the moment, but again, you can start teching out of true damage, maybe drop the cannon, maybe drop the Senna, and then start, you know, teching into crowd diver or whatever to start trying to buff the Qiyana in various ways. I will say this though, crowd diver, at least +2 crowd diver, or sorry, 2 out of 2 crowd diver, it's kind of mid. I don't really get the point of this crowd diver trait. If someone wants to let me know why they think this crowd diver trait is good, let me know in the comments. But it just looks like suicide bombing, but pretty. And it does like no damage. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe the vertical is really, really strong. I haven't tested it out yet, but if you've gotten a chance to try it out, let me know how it feels, because I would love to hear your opinion. Qiyana items are just exactly just whatever is AD. IE is really good on her. Titans is decent. It's fine. The problem is that Qiyana has a difficult time wrapping into the backline, so you actually don't really want her here. Maybe you want her like here instead. Kind of similar to Darius' positioning back at the early end of early part of set 9 with Darius positioning, if you remember that. But it's like IE, it's like, I think BT's okay. GS, Titans, Last Whisper, you get the idea. Like, all these items are very, very good on her. As soon as she's able to get into the backline, she's able to start putting in massive amounts of work and farming you infinite components. So keep an eye out for that. Very fun unit to play around. Finally, we're going to talk about Neeko. You might have noticed we're not talking about every single KDA unit because some of the KDA units are just not that impactful, or I just don't think they're very interesting to talk about. But let's talk about the final KDA unit we'll be going over, her headliner, but this is Neeko with Guardians. Neeko really only has one composition that I think is really, really great for her, and that is actually Double Trouble Neeko with Vex and Mumu. This is like easily my favorite comp of the set so far. I actually have a game of it already uploaded from the playtest. But it's actually a super fun comp to play around. You just play around the 4 Guardians for the front line, a lot of fucking front line, and Vex is able to just slowly and eventually accumulate enough damage to just kill off the whole board. Karthus is just there to just help spread Morello, and Amumu is your primary tank. I will say this though, you might notice the itemization of Amumu is kind of interesting. We're going with double Warmog's Gargoyles, and the reasoning is because Neeko's ability doesn't actually scale off AP, or at least not a lot of AP, but instead, the way that her ability does damage is that she will cosplay the highest health ally, sorry, not the enemy, the ally, in this case our Mumu, gain a health shield plus a percentage of the ally's health for 4 seconds. That's why you want a lot of HP on a Mumu. And then when the shield breaks, it will deal percentage of its initial value as magic damage to adjacent enemies. So basically the idea is that if a Mumu has a shitload of HP, Neeko will just take that HP, make it into a shield, and then once her shield breaks, just deal a lot of fucking damage. Again, really, really fun board. Cybernetic Bulk is also really, really great. I noticed I didn't talk about augments at all. The full list of augments are still being curated at the moment, at least from what I can tell. So, or also this builder, by the way, doesn't have all the augments. It only has like the ones from set 9. So there isn't too much to talk about with augments, but we'll do more augment stuff later down the line. But for now, we're just going over the builds and you get the idea. I mean, we're at like near the end of the video, but really cool board. And again, Neeko really likes the items like Crown Guard, Gunblade, and Ionic Spark. These are very similar to the items that were great on her back in set 9.5. So, you know, try it out. I actually think this is really, really dope. And I had a lot of fun playing this line. It's definitely my favorite. It is a little awkward though at 7 though, because you are rerolling at 7. You just play without the Thresh. And then at level 8, once you hit your Neeko, your Mumu, and your Vex, or maybe you hit just enough, you can just go level 8, play the Thresh. You know, think critically. Think critically. But yeah, that basically covers it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, hanging out with me. I am glad I was able to finally get this video out. Again, please buff Akali because holy shit, that unit is fucking dog water. And I will see you guys tomorrow for another daily upload. Again, I apologize if this video is a bit long, but again, we're trying to do deep dives into all of these verticals and how to play around the given headliners. So that's why these videos are so long. But I hope you enjoy my rambling, and I will see you guys all later. Take care, guys. This is not a concise video. I apologize. I tried my best. I'm trying to get this out ASAP, but I'll see you guys all later. Bye-bye. Happy climbing! Happy climbing! I almost didn't say it! Happy climbing! Also, by the way, no, you know what? No, I'm gonna make it a surprise. Happy climbing. Bye. Bye. Bye.